Thank you so much, Maryam, for having me. Um, it's definitely been an interesting journey. I'm glad you found it inspiring. For me, I think it was just a moment of weakness, and I had to vent. But it's nice to hear that from you. And inshallah, we keep doing that.
Do you regret that though?
Not at all. And it's part of the journey.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
think people might see you differently now that you had this article written about you, talking about something very personal?
I don't look at it that way. بالعكس, I'm very happy that I am comfortable in my own skin and comfortable to share the experiences that got me to where I am today. I hope people don't look at it that way, but if they do, then they're not the people that I want to, or they're not the right targeted audience. There are a lot of people going through the same, if not worse. And I'm hoping that's just an opening to express. And, you know, people go through this every day. It's not something new. But to be comfortable sharing such things, for some people, this could be something that's relieving for them. So I hope I push people to do that more often.
For someone who hasn't read that article, could you tell us what's written in it?
Um, so it's not necessarily only the Zahrat al Khalij article, but there was another one where I discussed it. Now, when I hit rock bottom, that was where uh, that was where I kind of reevaluated all of my life decisions. And I used it as a starting point for, inshallah, a better future. And how I kind of turned the idea of a negative experience for me to something that will benefit me and push me towards a brighter future, and how I looked at a certain way. It took, طبعا, the article just summarizes what it is in a one pager, but it took years and years of like understanding and navigating through. Um, but yeah, it's been a tough ride, and I'm glad, يعني alhamdulillah, اليوم I could say that I'm a much stronger person than I was. And this experience to me is something invaluable, يعني something I had to go through to reach where, alhamdulillah, I am today.
I think we had this interesting conversation a couple of minutes back about how you found me familiar. And I
Eh,
remember we were together in Dubai Chambers.
yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
you. It was
Such a long time back, by the way.
4 years ago, I think. Yeah. And you see all of these faces now,
Yeah.
like Asha Al-Hamrani or Latifa bin Haydar. They're
Inshallah.
doing really amazing. And
Yeah.
you were one of them at that point. And you see that they're still pursuing what they started with,
Yeah.
and going back, for those, I think you told me this, for those who don't know, you started at the age of 13, your road of entrepreneurship.
Not really, but there's a story to it. At the age of 10, I remember trying to convince my mom to sell pens to my friends in school. And obviously, I didn't know what entrepreneurship is. I didn't know that, oh, this could be the spark that takes me to the world of entrepreneurship. I don't really have many direct family members who are in that industry. Um, and then I took it forward. I started selling makeup. Remember those days where you used to buy online and sell it on Instagram? And then people have to add you on BBM to like
Yeah,
order. Yeah. So I went through that.
that feels like a long time ago
Yeah,
though.
it's يعني, now looking back, it's like, you know what, thank God I did that, because at least it kind of like familiarized the concept of business, and at least helped me pick my major at uni, يعني. So yeah, and then I started there, and then during my last semester of university, I had the idea of Baka, which is a platform for flower shops in the UAE. Um, and then we took it from there.
Do you think you got a lot of criticism considering that you started so young?
Criticism, لا, but I had to face a lot of obstacles.
Such as?
One of them being I don't have experience. And whether I would read or like research, no matter how much I did that, you still don't have real life experience. But I wouldn't say it's criticism from people. It's setbacks from experiences that you go through being let's say a newbie to that field. Um, And it's actually on you to just decide, do you want to push through and learn? Because that is, I would say that is the only way. Not having experience in that field, I didn't have experience in real life, and I didn't know how it works outside of university, you know. يعني حدي midterm final and we're done. But yeah, how to negotiate with people, how to really pitch your idea, how to sell. These are things that you would only learn if you, يعني, if you went through those experiences, and it's not something that you could study. That was my biggest obstacle for sure, يعني.
Would you say these obstacles were internally or externally?
Both. It was an external struggle, but then it becomes an internal one. It's like, um, so you go through those experiences, and then you go like, you know, maybe I'm not fit for that. Maybe this is just isn't working out. Maybe this isn't my thing, and then that's what it becomes internal. And I would say, internal struggles are the hardest struggles because, yani, you are your biggest enemy, but you could also be your biggest support. But it really just depends how you look at things.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, starting the podcast was a bit of a hectic road as well,
Yeah.
like technical stuffs, as we were talking about
Yeah.
how the problems with the mics and everything, these were all
And mashallah,
external.
how you started, and I saw your one of your first podcasts, and look at the setting now, yani.
Alhamdulillah. I mean,
Yeah,
those were
good
external
on you.
problems, but it did affect me on the internal. I was like, oh my god, how am I supposed to
Yeah,
balance
exactly.
with that?
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
you know, تعدينا هذه
Alhamdulillah.
المرحلة
Good
الحمد
for you.
لله. And I think it's really inspiring for people to hear such stories
Yeah.
from people who have
It
actually
gets
reached.
better. It gets better for
Yeah.
sure, but I
Do you have a
think
story such as that?
of when I wanted to quit. I have a lot. So I remember I remember going finishing a certain program I was doing for entrepreneurship. It was called an ideation. I was done, and then I moved back to Abu Dhabi because I was done with uni by that time, and it was a struggle between. And I wouldn't say a struggle, but it wasn't really the best experience. It was between me and my dad, where he was like, "Reem, you have to get a job." Um, and I was slowly getting convinced because he really did come from a, يعني, he had a really good point, very solid.
What was the
Um,
point?
so basically, he's like, Reem, set a clear foundation, have some cash, save up money, get some experience, and then get into business. And he used to say, يعني, البزنس ما بيشرد عنك. ف and to me, it was no, I need to focus all of my full energy and, you know, all of this like hype that it's business or nothing or all of that. But it was خلاص, either I was going to start a job, I would quit a business and I'd focus on one thing. But somehow it worked out. I remember he used to kind of force me to send him my CV, and he would send it across. And he'd force me to apply, and he'd ask, "Did you apply, Reem? Did you apply to this?" And most of the time, it was a, let's just call it a fake yes. بعدين الحمد لله I started with a job. I listened to him, and خلاص, I was in a period where, you know what, I'll do business later. I know I love this thing, and I know I want to do it, and I know I want to grow into that industry, but maybe it's time for me to learn. And I kind of like stepped back شوي. And then there was some post of a competition. It was called the Pitchet Palace, that was run by Khalifa
شراع.
Fund. Khalifa Fund and Shara, yeah. So basically, I applied, and then that's when the wheel started like rolling again. But it was a lot of an internal struggle for me to like just start and get out of comfort zone. I didn't have cash at all. No savings. Obviously, I just started. I just graduated. Um, no work experience, no real life experience. So I really don't know what's happening. But you know, it was tough, but you gotta keep going. That's the only way you'll find out.
So entrepreneurship in some ways were your outlet of creating something, or your outlet of giving out and giving back to the maybe community or something, like for you to try, right?
Um, I wouldn't يعني really look at it that way. I'd go like it's giving back to yourself as well.
Wow.
يعني it's how do you want to be, or what do you want to do in the future? You owe it to yourself to try at least, and not like fall into that like um, comfort zone where it's too comfortable and you don't want to take that step. Yeah, you do owe it to yourself.
Do you think if you had gone for that job and then
I
started your
did.
business,
I did. I did.
what did you learn from that job that you
A lot,
maybe
wallah.
then applied it to your entrepreneurship journey?
I learned a lot and I'm very grateful for it. Number one, I think, is how to set priorities and how to really discipline yourself. I think these are the two characteristics that are super important to be for an entrepreneur to have. And I learned that because obviously you were stuck with 8 to 4 fixed working hours and you owe that to them عشان الراتب يكون حلال. And then after that, how are you going to sort out between your social life, your business, sleep? فyeah, I used to, يعني, they always say it's a triangle, social life, work, and sleep, and you have to pick two. But that was like a really, really big struggle. I missed out on a lot of my nephew's birthdays and a lot of family events and a lot of friends. But I think it was critical to be a part of the journey, and I'm very blessed, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. It's a lonely journey, isn't it?
Oh my God, it is bad. I don't want to sound negative, but it's not anything you'd expect at all. Um, so many lessons, but it's again, it's how you look at things. If you want to look at it like it's a negative journey that's gonna pull you back, then you could do that. But um, يعني for me, I think حتى it's part of my personality to be a solution-oriented person. فأنا it was like hunger to solve those things. فشوية it could be enriching as well. So it's lonely, but you're also really busy. But it's just how you see things.
But did you ever consider quitting because it got lonely?
Yeah, yeah, a
I mean,
hundred, a
there
hundred
are
million
so many
percent.
reasons why you
Yeah,
would quit
yeah,
because
yeah,
money is not coming in,
yeah,
so many obstacles on the way. But the obstacle that really affects us, which I don't think we really talk about,
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah,
how lonely it is
yeah. For sure.
and how you cannot connect with other people that easily.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Aside, yani, in addition, let's say to feeling lonely, it's um, at some point you become your own mentor, you become your own like therapist. So you need a lot of you to be like very present and very positive. It was always an easier idea to just quit and live like anyone else. It's easy, and you'd think so. But I chose to keep fighting, and not fighting anyone but myself. So I chose to continue and go through with what I believe in. I'm not saying that, يعني, I'm not saying that it's easy or that's what people, or no, I'm not even glamorizing it. It's just really what you wish to do. And then, as I said in the beginning, I owe it to myself to try. So at least I'll do that. Uh, but being comfortable with the idea of being lonely is also very important. That you will screw up. You will want to quit every single day. But if you're not comfortable with that idea and pulling or being pulled down, then it's gonna be very, very tough.
But what motivates Alreem to keep on going and fighting? Because it's so diverse. Everything
Yeah.
is, I mean, as what I see it, money does not motivate you,
Well,
but what does
as
it?
as cliche as it sounds, Maryam, it's the vision. It's knowing that okay, this is what I want to reach. This is what I believe is going to happen, and then you just keep fighting for that. And I know it sounds very cliche, but it is cliche for a reason because it's so true. And then every time, alhamdulillah, every time you reach that goal, you set a higher one for yourself, and you go like, yeah, what else? What's next? Give it
Yeah.
to me.
As what I see it, you're very true to yourself.
I hope so. يعني I think that's keeping me going. It's being realistic that, yeah, it sucks, but at least I know it sucks. Makes things easier. And then it's just easier because you're more like, okay, it sucks, but what are we going to do about it? So I think awareness is also a very big part of it. But yeah.
What I've seen so far, and it's something really honoring when you don't give up.
Yeah.
There's some kind of this positive vibe that you give up when you give out, when you're not a giver. Give up, giver. Is that a word?
Okay, maybe you want to rephrase that sentence again. Go for it.
Give up
Go.
when you're not a giver. What's that word when you give up?
Uh,
لا
blank.
لا عادي.
Blank. Mar. You
When
do.
you give up, you lose. No, you're not a loser. Like, you just give up. You're not a fighter. But is that a bad thing?
No, not at all, actually. Relax. It takes a lot more courage to give up than to keep going. Ironically.
Really?
Yeah. لأن giving up, you have expectations from people. A lot of this mission and this idea of like, oh, I'm becoming an entrepreneur or whatever you are in that field. And you start saying it out loud because you're so excited and you want people to, clap their hands for you. And then they become sort of, you become responsible to that, and which is ironic and so sad, by the way. When you go like, I'm gonna lose weight, so I'm gonna post about it on Instagram so that I owe or I'm accountable to that. It's kind of the same idea. So people start asking you, oh, what happened with this? And then once you're slacking, and then they give you that, and it's like you let them down, but it's not really about them. It's just how it is right now. Um, and just disappointing people, whether it was the closest people around you, hardest by the way, and then or what or the image people have of you is hard. But just deciding to give up, ترى it takes a lot more bravery. You can't just easily give up. There's a lot more to worry about if you decide to. So for me, honestly, it was easier to just keep going. But then it becomes a struggle between myself and it's an ongoing circle.
It's a
It's
thought
not
of
easy. Hey,
what would people think if I gave up, right?
hey, it's the disappointment. But again, you're reminded to be very comfortable with failure throughout the way. So what kind of failure do you want to go through? Who failure الموضوع فيه it has to happen. But yeah, as I said, it takes a lot more guts for sure.
How did you manage all of that?
Did I? I'm not so sure.
I mean, as I see it, you did. Or are
Alhamdulillah.
you're on the path at least?
Alhamdulillah, I would say I'm a lot better than I used to be like 2 years ago with like dealing with things. Again, it's self-discipline. It's um,
Did you just wake up one day and decide you're gonna be self-disciplined?
no,
How did
no,
that
it's
happen?
training. It's like, how do you force yourself to go to the gym every day? Same thing. How do you force yourself to work, even though like you love what you're doing, you're having so much fun, but you also love going out with friends. You also love hanging out at home and doing absolutely nothing.
Which
That
is much easier.
at least that's how it was for me. So it's like, okay, remind yourself what the goal is, and then just do it. Don't think about it too much. Just do what you have to do, and then it'll work out. And then day by day, you start respecting time more. So for me, it was, before I'd sleep, I text myself that at this time I'm gonna do this, at this time I'm gonna do this, or at least have like some sort of to-do list. And then if I don't do it, it just feels I'd feel very disappointed of myself. So then you start learning how to set proper to-do lists. And then like there's a whole science behind it, by the way. So it's like the SMART goals that you study in uni and whatever. It's like, oh, it's a real thing. And then you start teaching yourself about yourself. How do you work? And you follow that. Everyone has their own rhythm. There is no like 100% right recipe.
It
It's just how it
it's so
works.
interesting because I was reading something about self-esteem a couple of days back, and it said self-esteem is related to you doing what you say you're gonna do.
Yeah. Oh
So that
yeah.
really affects you.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
then when you don't do something that
Yeah.
you said you're gonna do, your self-esteem goes lower.
Exactly.
And then when you don't have that self-esteem, you can't do it though.
Exactly.
So you need to have self-esteem
I'm
to do
telling you,
what you're gonna do.
it's like an ongoing like circle. It's just you keep taking and then giving back and then taking and then giving. So it really just depends on your flow. But yeah, as you said, you need to like really push yourself so that you could trust yourself, and then you'd fall back and then you do that all over again
It's
every
so
single day.
tricky.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
so
It's
tricky.
not easy. It's not easy,
But
and
if
that's
you're
why.
smart about it, I think you can handle it.
You can definitely try, and I don't like it when people glamorize the idea of like if you're passionate you do it. Absolutely not, or at least not for me. Passion isn't the only thing that's needed in this equation of a successful venture or whatever it is that you're aiming for. It's just simply not enough. There needs to be a lot of commitment, energy, discipline. Yeah, passion for sure is a driver, but it's not the only one. And then you just decide what will help you move forward.
Having been through all of that, what do you think it narrows down to? One thing that really pushes you to be committed, passionate, dedicated.
So one thing that makes me look forward to being that, basically,
What narrows it down? Yani, what's your basically the infrastructure that you have?
it's a tough one. It has to be a little bit of everything. But then I would say it's responsibility. لأن once you start a business that depends on other people and has employees you need to give back to, that sense of responsibility يعني هذا الforce اللي you have to go to the office and finish your work. How am I going to pay back my salaries for the next 6 months? Um, في families that are depending on you. It's really يعني I think it stems from there for sure. It's that sense of responsibility to give back, and then aside from your team, it's to give back to yourself.
Remember, we had this conversation before about how a business degree contributes to your entrepreneurship venture, and how it does not
Yeah.
really affect.
Yeah, not at
And
all.
because you're already a business major, you graduated and then you started your own entrepreneurship and you started your own businesses. Wasla, by the way, which is a huge success. Baka, amazing thing, and you've been really consistent. So, do you really think for people who are confused, who just graduated, and they wanna start their own thing, business is a degree that you should follow?
If you want to. ما في شيء you have to. You could be a business owner if you studied engineering. It ما يخصك at all. It has nothing to do with that. At the end of the day, everywhere you work in, government, non-government, is a business. في ins وفي outs. It doesn't have to be money. بس في ins and في outs. But what a business degree taught me is a strategy, a structure, how things usually work. And then you kind of apply or take that with some work experience. يعني the way things work in government entities is very different than the way things work in private entities. But fee base, fee the simple idea of how do you write an email, how do you escalate a matter, for example. This is what you're going to learn from a job. And then business majors are going to study how it works. But nothing is the same as working on it and actually applying it. يعني it's not necessarily the same thing at all, because what I learned at university is nothing like what I'm working on today. في طبعا basis, but again, basis I would have gotten graduating any other degree. So it doesn't really matter يعني. Best for me, I enjoyed the idea of business. And again, studying business is not entrepreneurship. Business is just how to run a business. For me, in my case, it was management and I minored in marketing. But then you have other majors that fall under that umbrella. accounting, finance, whatever it was. So it really depends. But again, just to like sum it up, it doesn't have to be the same thing. Yani it's very far off.
We hear a lot on social media about entrepreneurship and all of those struggles, but what I haven't seen a lot is an Emirati woman who has her own business and her intake on the whole environment of entrepreneurship in the country. Especially because Wasla is a male oriented industry that Wasla is currently servicing in.
Yeah, exactly.
So how does that work? Like, is there a discrimination against you? Maybe is there
Not
things
at all. Not at all. It's
that you
just
could do maybe, and
okay.
things that you can't do because you're a woman?
Yeah. شوفي Wasla is male oriented simply because it's in the logistics field, but it doesn't really mean in a we can't. بالعكس احنا as Emirati women we have a lot of opportunities and young Emiratis have a lot support from government entities, private entities. They're a lot more welcoming than you think. There's this idea, stereotype in okay, I can't enter that field because it's male oriented. But then again, it's only the way it works يعني. Alhamdulillah, we live in a society where Emirati females are respected. It wasn't anything that I was intimidated by. It's just that almost every meeting I would go to, I'd be the only female. I'm gonna have to learn how to speak to men differently, and you know, it's not the same. But then again, this pours into the art of communication in any way, which you learn. This was one thing that was weird to me in the beginning, but it's a lot more easier because now I know what I'm doing, how I'm talking to them. But it shouldn't be a factor where it intimidates anyone that wants to enter a similar industry.
I've heard the stereotype that Emirati women or Emiratis have it so easy, and that we don't really do much of the work. We're not really that smart or whatever. We're just, you know, and it was really weird for me because I do the work. I see a lot of other Emiratis going to Harvard, Stanford, such prestigious universities. They can't just get in because they had
Yeah,
wasta.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
They had the
We're
grades.
so over that, by the way. So over that conversation.
Yeah, but I still
Yeah.
find these interactions going
احنا
on.
Alhamdulillah, we live in a society where our leaders give us everything. Government entities give us everything. Private entities support as much as possible. And I'm talking specifically supporting SMEs. But that support does extend to everyone else as well. And their belief in the younger generation. We do hear a lot from the outer world, let's say, that we're spoiled, but you and I are here talking about successful ventures. Alhamdulillah, you're hosting this podcast, but it's like a reminder to them, but it's also a responsibility for me to show people that, you know, we're not spoiled. Well, I'm here working just as much as you are. And we're very lucky to be in an environment that supports that.
But that doesn't take away from the hard work that you do.
It doesn't, but if they want to look at it that way, then they could be my guests. I'm over that. Let's just work and get it over with. I did get a lot of or I went through a lot of incidents where they'd underestimate you because whatever, you have the money, do whatever you want, or مثلا they'd raise the prices higher. But I think being aware that this is how some people would look at us is super important. Researching, having an idea before مثلا meeting or being in conversations like that is super important. And it just works out. You're gonna figure it out eventually. يعني.
Yeah, it's a very sensitive topic though.
Yeah,
It's
it
very,
is.
it's
Unfortunately, but again, it's part of the journey. So
Yeah,
you
but I
gotta do
think
what you gotta do.
you have to talk about it though,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
To really express how your situation is as well. That you're not spoiled and that you're not entitled in some ways.
Yeah. But it isn't as intense as you think it is.
Yeah. It's very low key.
Hey, very, very,
Very
and
low
they're
key.
very subtle, huh? يعني مثلا عادي they give you an invoice that is like 10% higher. I'm like, what? It comes with a passport? You know, are you kidding me? But again, you gotta be aware, you gotta be careful. But then again, it happens with everything else. It's not just because you're an Emirati. It's you being a female, with you being young. There are so many يعني, obstacles that you need to cross and overcome. Um, بس الحمد لله كله على بعضها يعني it's an important part of the journey.
Going back to that Al Zahra Al Khalij's article,
Mm.
you said you hit rock bottom last year.
Mm. Yeah.
How was that like?
Intense. Super intense. I think it was post, I felt like it was post COVID. And then things are back to normal, شوي شوي. And then you're just suddenly overwhelmed with everything because with COVID, whether we agree or not, but at least for me, I took a step back because everything took a step back. So I did. بعدين, once everything came back, it was so overwhelming because people are like pushing, and then you have that like emotion and stress that, oh, I have to do the same. It took a lot of therapy to like understand why I'm feeling a certain way or how to navigate through it. Um, it was intense to just pull myself out of that circle. I felt like at one point I was digging myself like deeper and deeper and deeper. Um, it was a very intense ride. It was not easy. And then, alhamdulillah, I did a lot of therapy. I tried my best to do things I'm familiar with. But I was also comfortable to trying new experiences. And then slowly again start reminding myself who I am, what I'm doing, why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that was reviving,
It's
I'd
really
say.
amazing. You're very vocal about your therapy phase.
يعني, I would say a big chunk of us goes to therapy, so there's no issue يعني.
There's this idea though, because um, therapy is like what I've heard from a lot of people is that when you go to therapy, you kind of overwhelm yourself with the problems that you actually have,
Yeah, it's scary.
which
And yeah,
is
by
an
the way,
addict talk.
yeah. Until now, I hate therapy day, but then I know I leave the next day. Maybe not the same day, but the next day I'm a lot more refreshed. You know, it's like having a massage appointment, and then it's just the salon is super far away, and then you're go like, oh, it's just a hassle to get there. But then the minute you leave, you're like, oh, thank God I came. You know, it's the same thing for me. Um, and then just having to talk about your problems, because with therapy, what I hate, by the way, is that you have to like schedule an appointment. It doesn't come the same minute. It comes like in 2 weeks. So you in 2 weeks, you're just like all over the place and you're just waiting for that day. And then on that appointment, you're reliving every negative thing that you did the past like month, maybe. And it's just so negative. But the minute it's out, um, it's refreshing. It's relieving. It's like, oh, that was easy, you know? And I have that struggle every appointment. But I like it. Yani, I'm very, very happy that I went through that. I know now a lot about how to deal with myself, and how I like things. And it just makes you feel a lot more powerful because now your strongest skill set is there. It's known. You know it. It's yours to use. So yeah.
How did you come out with that? Because you're being so vocal about it. Wasn't there ever an obstacle? Because I think a lot of people face that, where we're hesitant to talk about our issues, our personal
يعني I'm
matters,
um
but you're saying it to
hey,
a lot more people because
yeah. يعني honestly, Maryam, I saw its benefits on me, and I wish I could just like share that with everyone else. They don't have to be vocal about it if they don't want to be. At the end of the day, it's their own journey. But I wish people knew the benefits of just going to therapy. I think everyone should go to therapy. I'm that kind of person, by the way. Um, it's it's not necessarily you venting to someone that's an expert, but it's also you, and more importantly, it's also the therapist explaining why you feel certain things. And then once you understand the reasoning behind something, you start navigating through those emotions a lot better. And then every failure, every setback is just to you easy you're than any other person because now you know how to deal with it, you know. So that's how I look at it, and I wish that I could motivate people that are still stuck in that don't believe in therapy to go through that because it really is life changing, and inshallah we are able to pass that on.
Inshallah, I think there's been a huge development in that area.
Yes, yes.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, a lot of people around me. Tara, at the end of the day, I also listen from people. Being surrounded by a society that today is a lot more like open, or at least the generational gap, yani, uh, being surrounded by people that are also open helps a lot. They'd exchange their experiences. Inshallah, I could be that to someone else.
Tell me a little bit about your experience with Wasla and Baka. How did that start?
I started Baqa because I loved flowers so much, but I could not afford a flower shop, and I used to see that there was a lot of competition of flower shops in the UAE. So I wanted to stick to the same industry. I just did not have the idea how. And I was getting into supply and whatever. And then I was in class one day. I remember it was a project management class. And I got the idea. I left the class. I went to straight to Shara. It was like a 2 minute walk because it's in uni where I studied the AUS. And I pitched the idea. They're like, "Oh my god, amazing! We have a program coming soon, and then we also have a startup competition." So I started Baqa from there. And then with Baqa, I had a lot of difficulties with delivery and refrigerated delivery being a concept where we group flower shops across the UAE. That also means our customers are across the UAE. So how am I going to deliver a flower bouquet from Abu Dhabi to Dubai, for example? And then I started collecting an Excel sheet. And it was right before COVID where I kind of turned that Excel sheet into its own company, which today is known as Wasla. Um, with Wasla, I needed a partner that had a lot more experience in managing because I also had another business I needed to like really focus on. Um, I co-founded Wasla, and then it just took off from there as its own venture. And now Baka are clients to Wasla, so that's good. That's good for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Um, by the end of the session, what we do is we ask a few questions. It's a
Let's do it.
rapid kind of a question, and you have to say the first word or whatever
First
that
thought?
comes for. Yeah.
Oh, let's do that.
Let's go with what's your path in one word?
Peace.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Is that you're aiming for it or it's
Hey, definitely internal peace. يسوى الدنيا كلها يعني.
yeah?
Yeah.
I think that's really over like I think a lot of people value happiness over peace, but they don't realize peace is much more
Yeah,
addicting.
happiness is an extreme, at least for me. I feel like knowing how to be in the center and knowing how to ground yourself and be peaceful, and then you could deal with any emotion, whether it was complete happiness or anger. But I think the foundation starts with peace.
You know, it's really exciting. I'm so sorry we're going into this because I really want to know this. You say peace is something that really value, and you were this person who has done Baqa, you have done Wasla, you've been
Yeah.
successful in these ventures, and after COVID, you still hit rock bottom.
Mm.
So this idea, this concept of you're successful as
Yeah.
what it seems like, but you still don't feel successful, and you
Yeah.
still feel not at peace.
Exactly.
No matter how
Exactly.
many awards, how many competitions, and how many ventures that you're so succeeding in,
Exactly.
and you
So
still don't feel that.
so that's exactly what I'm aiming for. I need to teach myself how to be يعني be at my best in all of in all of that. Remember in the يعني earlier I was saying you reach that goal and then you find another one and you go for it. But once you reach that goal, it's like, what's next? And you feel lost and you feel like disappointed that it's just, you want more, you're hungry for more. So how would you teach yourself to appreciate, be peaceful with your own emotions and really have gratitude? So Anna, to me, it goes down to just appreciating every moment and being very peaceful and regulated with your emotions. Again, I believe happiness is an extreme and it's at the end of the spectrum. So how are you going to be comfortable with the middle? How are you going to be comfortable with disappointment? How are you going to be comfortable with you achieving on your goals?
How was
What
Alreem
else?
comfortable with all of this?
Anna, for me, again, I look for and I'm teaching myself how to be very grateful to all of those little moments. Yeah, there are a lot of ways that you could slowly teach yourself to do that. For me, journaling is one way, but how do you really be satisfied with failure and happiness? And that's really what I try to get to every single day. I'm not saying it's 100% working, but inshallah I get there, and that's what I aim for.
Wow, satisfied by feeling, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's an interesting topic.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
I would
intense.
never be satisfied by failing. I'm not gonna
Exactly,
lie.
but
Like, it's so uncomfortable.
but
It's an
then
uncomfortable thought.
that's not fair to you because يعني if you're gonna keep aiming towards يعني something higher and higher and higher, you're always gonna be like um, challenging your own self, and to me, I view it شوية negative emotions because you feel like you're not full enough even at your peak.
Mm.
So that's something that you really need to work on internally, and it's not something that يعني perhaps you should work harder and do something better. So it's like, how am I gonna feel fulfilled? You know? And that's what I aim for. That's something I teach myself every day. Inshallah, yani, inshallah we get to that one
Inshallah,
day. Yeah.
inshallah. It's so interesting. It's so nice that you mentioned it. That I'm aiming for it, and I haven't reached there because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's a constant.
It's a constant struggle for sure. It's
Yeah,
a
for
constant lesson.
everyone.
Hey, hey,
It's not something that you reach you and then you attain.
hey,
You
hey.
have to continuously make sure that you
Exactly.
have peace.
Exactly. And it's a constant internal battle. Again, we did mention that you are your biggest enemy, but you could also be your biggest support. How could I do that?
That was really that was really motivating.
That
I'm not
wasn't
gonna
a
lie.
fast wrap up, Maryam.
um, we're done.
We're done.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Alreem.
Uh,
I actually enjoyed it myself.
thank you.
Like
Thank you. That's so nice
all the
of you.
questions that I was asking, we kind of moved away from the script, and I was like, I want to know. I want to know what's like being satisfied with failing because I've never been the
Yeah.
type where
Being content. Wallah, it's
I
it's
wouldn't
it's
be
a difficult
ever
journey.
okay with failing. You know, and I have to be okay, obviously,
Yeah.
but it's a long road
Yeah, yeah,
towards
yeah.
that.
Oh
And
yeah, it needs a lot of work, by the way. Bess, again, thank you so much for having me, Maryam. Wallah, and I'm so happy that you got into something you really enjoy. And I hope this just keeps going bigger and bigger. And again, thank you for your time.
I'm glad
Inshallah,
you
we were able to pass on some lessons of my journey.
I'm
Inshallah.
glad that you came from Abu Dhabi to
Thank you.
deliver this message back. That's
I'm happy to do so
Yeah.
always, wallah. And I love small projects that have a lot of impact. This could be something really, and you phrased it yourself, by the way. And this is a small business or idea that you're working on. But then again, think of the impact that you're leaving, and I think that's what matters. I love this so much. Thank you, if anything.
Thank you so much. There was this amazing woman who told me this thing, and you have to have your antennas open. She actually did like the antenna thing, and then you're gonna find the right people who would help you down that journey.
Yeah.
But if your antennas are clogged
Yeah.
and they're not accessible, then you wouldn't be able to get to the right people who are trying to help you. Like, you came from Abu Dhabi here to have a conversation and be, talk about whatever you went through and the journey, and I'm so grateful for that. It's because I unclogged my antennas. I opened them up,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I put myself out
Yeah,
there. Like,
exactly.
I put myself out
It
there
needs a
for,
lot of confidence, صح? Yeah,
like,
see? So,
I've
and this
been,
teaches you so much about yourself and how you work with people, or how you should take from people as well. And it's again, it's a journey.
I think for me it's been like, I've shut down a part of my brain
Yeah,
where it's,
yeah,
the terror, that
yeah,
alarm that it's giving
exactly.
me. Oh my god, say something. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm not gonna hear that.
Exactly.
All I'm gonna do
Move on.
is do the next best,
Yeah,
do the next thing.
yeah,
So the negative emotions, the negative thoughts are there,
mm,
but I've just shut them off.
exactly.
And I've
And
turned the blind eye from that.
and then slowly you're gonna start learning and seeing, and what if I don't shut them off, but then work with them? What exactly am I gonna do? So hopefully that's a session for next time.
That's another chapter, in everyone's life, though.
And I'd really want to hear that from an expert, a podcast run by you, inshallah,
Inshallah,
inshallah.
inshallah, because
It is,
it's an interesting topic.
yeah,
Because
it's super important.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
so many studies and research going on about this
yeah.
whole negative and whole how your vibe affects others and everything, and it's been
And the
amazing.
antennas and all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Being around positive, successful, or whatever you define as successful, you yourself might see yourself as, you're doing something, you're
Yeah,
active and everything that rubs off to the other person.
yeah.
So I definitely believe in the idea of being surrounded by the right people, and that's so important.
100%. It's the right people that will keep you going. And then also, Maryam, it's you being the right person for yourself.